People who lost in a major televised show, America's Got Talent, American Idol, etc. What was life like when you got home? Links are in the description. I have a friend who was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire back when that show was big time popular. He went on the show, answered 2 questions correctly, and missed on the 3rd question. Something very simple he should have gotten correctly. He was so embarrassed, it practically devastated him. Though hardly anyone knew he had been to the taping, he came home and was depressed for months, knowing it would be airing soon. He was inconsolable, wouldn't socialize with anyone for a while, and went into a deep depression. He eventually got over it, but it really took a toll on him for a while. Oddly, he wanted to go back on the show for another chance. Thankfully he didn't do that. Wouldn't socialize with anyone for a while. Should have at least phoned a friend. I also have a friend that was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. He ended up getting decently far until he got a movie question wrong. Now, this guy was a huge movie buff, so he knew that the answer they had wasn't right and ended up writing the show with proof after the fact. They ended up settling on having him come back on a different show. Deal or no deal. Overall didn't win a ton, but afford a home for him and his family, so it worked out awesome for him. I had a professor who was on Jeopardy, and according to them, he answered the final Jeopardy wrong, even though he knew the answer was perfectly acceptable. He sent in several well-documented examples and they admitted it should have been a correct answer. They paid him the money he would have won. With the number of questions these shows have to produce on a daily/weekly basis, it has to happen more often than people realize. They are just hoping the contestant who misses it isn't well versed in that field. I was on Legends of the Hidden Temple when I was a kid. We made it to the final stage, where you go through the temple, but we lost because my ducking partner couldn't put together the Shrine of the Silver Monkey. It was very nerve-wracking, though it's not as easy as it looks when you are doing it, is what they told me. Plus those temple guards are scary. So what you're saying is you didn't win the grand prize weekend in Vermont, but you did win Return of Jafar on VHS and a sick pair of LED light-up sneaks. You lived my dream. This likely doesn't count, but I was on a TV show here in the UK called Dinner Date. Basically I had to cook a 3-course meal for a girl I'd never met before at my mum's home. 2 other guys did the same. She didn't pick me, but she did say I was the best looking, so there's always that. I embarrassed myself a little, as this was the first thing that came out of my mouth.
One thing that I really hate, like the one thing I really hate, makes me feel sick, is when people rub their hands on carpet. I hate that.
The other thing to note, listen to the ducking music they picked for me. The other guys got things like Sexual Healing and other similar music. They made me look like a clown. Anyway, to answer your question, I was already home, and nothing really changed. I got about 10 random friend requests on Facebook from girls, most of which I ignored. I went on one date with someone on Facebook that found me after seeing me on the show, but she was a bit odd. I also got recognized in a pub and also at a festival, but this was years ago and now I have faded back into obscurity. Cowboy from season 5 of Big Brother is from my hometown, which is small and in Oklahoma. I didn't really know who he was until he was pointed out to me as our server at Chili's. Rachel from Big Brother Canada 2 is a friend of mine. She still thinks she is famous. She's not. My brother made the top 15 in America's Got Talent. He actually skipped medical school so he could compete. After they got the boot, he played a couple shows with his group, then went on to medical school. Now he's the chief resident in a children's hospital in Orlando. I got to fly out to Los Angeles to see the show live. He says it's a nice addition to his resume. Edit. I forgot to add they auditioned for the show through MySpace, and they were chosen out of a couple thousand videos. Nice to see that he went back to med school and didn't get any false hopes of making it big performing. I lost on an old Canadian game show called UO. My life was precisely the same as it had been before. True story. Edit. To all the UO fans, I've managed to find the episode. Feel free to watch a young me bring shame to my family. Chris Reen is my neighbor. He actually won the X Factor, but whatever. They played up this sob story, how he used to be on drugs and is clean now. Not a bad singer really. Yeah, he's back on drugs. Edit. He actually came in 3rd. Whoops. Tomorrow on BuzzFeed, you will never guess this X Factor winner is back on drugs. Be prepared for PMs from reputed publications such as BuzzFeed, Probable, Think Catalog etc wanting you to quote on that. I randomly shared a 10-hour flight from Europe with a girl who just got kicked off The Bachelor. She was in the top 3. She seemed super embarrassed most of the flight. Of course I ended up watching the series when it aired, and she was the bitch of the group that none of the girls liked. She's from my home city and behold years later my sister ended up working with her at a corporate office, and she said everything was just business as usual. Small goddamn world BTW. I'm willing to bet that the girl wasn't that much of a duck, and that the other contestants probably didn't even dislike her as much as the show portrayed. You can tell pretty much any narrative you want with editing, especially on a show like The Bachelor where literally less than 1% of their recorded footage actually airs. I dated a girl in college, years ago, who was selected to be on The Real World when it was a thing. Is it still a thing? They told her she could be on the show, but she had to be mean, abusive, drunk, angry, aggressive, etc. They basically told her to play the role of the bitch. She said no. The thing was, she was a huge bitch. When she told me, with a deadpan face I said, "Oh no really? Oh, that's terrible for you. That you would, have to act that way." Same girl that, when we broke up, faked a pregnancy and stole all my toilet paper because you broke up because she was seeing someone else at the same time. Found out one night when she said she was done seeing the other guy and chose me of the two. Gee thanks. A friend of mine was working for MTV and was cast to be on Next. Basically it's a dating show where you start with one person, and if you don't like them you shout next and they leave, and another blind date person on the bus comes in to finish the date. My friend was so pumped when he got cast, thinking it would lead to other projects. Day of shooting for it comes and goes, and he doesn't say much about it other than he got a few contacts in the industry from it and didn't think his would air on TV. Sure enough it did air, season opener for the show. He was the first person in line to get off the bus and got nexted with one foot still on the bus. The girl he was supposed to date commented about his looks and told him to turn around. Felt super bad for him. He caught a lot of grief from people after that. He doesn't act anymore. Caught a lot of grief. Be honest OP, have you ever shouted next as he entered the room? I was on college Jeopardy in 2013 and placed 3rd. Since it was a tournament and not a normal style game, I won $25,000 for coming in 3rd instead of the normal $1,000 3rd place participants get. I don't know if that still qualifies as losing, but I didn't win and still kick myself a bit for wagering stupidly in the last final Jeopardy, 1st place. When I got back home, my life initially was a little odd. People I hadn't spoken to in years were contacting me and seeing how I'd been and such, which was pretty nice. Since I didn't win the lottery or become famous or anything, it's not like they'd have ulterior motives to getting in touch with me. I had a couple of random people stop me on campus since I went representing my institution and there was a lot of social media coverage by the school, and ask me if I was that Jeopardy girl. But that was about it as far as abnormal things. I got to pay off some of my college loans and all of my friends and family were really proud of me. Overall, 10 out of 10 would recommend to anyone. I have lost on many reality shows. I lost in round 2 of this season of America's Got Talent. I lost on Whippet, Solitary Ninja Warrior, Rock Band 2, The Stars ECT. Being on reality TV is weird and hard for many people to handle. You get a taste of the celebrity life, people running up to you for photos, tons of people adding you on social media, lots of chatter about you. It's awesome. However, a week or 2 after it airs, you are replaced by new people and the drop off is fast, and if you aren't ready for it, it's a bit shocking. I know some people who hold on to their brief experience with fame and can't move on. I did an episode of MTV True Life back in 2000, and when people quickly stopped caring about it, it was awkward. I didn't know how to deal with it at first. So for all the shows I do now, I know I'm just going out there to be an idiot, make for some entertaining TV, and then move on with my next thing. However, since this year, I moved on to the next round in AGT, and it made me feel great. I felt like I was on borrowed time during that second episode, because moving forward was never the plan. It was awesome though. Tons of people reached out to me on Facebook and Twitter. Lots of people I haven't talked to in years were sharing my posts and saying words on encouragement, and it was great. Then I got eliminated in a montage in round 2, and all that fanfare and craziness is gone. While I wish I was there with all those super talented people doing the live shows, I have to remind myself that I got some great footage out of the show, more followers to check out all my performances, and tons of great memories. Finally, a question I can be of some use with, although we didn't lose. My ex-girlfriend and I were on a television show on HGTV called Flipping the Block, and we ended up winning it. I'll leave it to you guys to discuss whether or not it is a major show, but I guess most would say it is not. From my experience, during the post-production, when the commercials are all over, and through the airing of every episode, there is a lot of attention from everyone, and then after the show is over the attention falls off almost completely aside from an interview here and there. It can become quite addicting, and having even a minute taste of it makes me infinitely more understanding of how people could do anything to stay in the limelight. But I digress, and to answer OP's original question, the feeling is weird. You aren't being followed by cameras 24/7. You aren't hooked up to a mic 24/7. What people need to realize is that even though you rarely to never see a camera when you watch a TV show, my ex and I had a crew of 7 to 9 following us at any given moment, literally unless we were sleeping. All of that being said, we did feel like losers on our show, because although we emerged victorious, a TV show offer was extended to another couple from our show, even though they lost, had a bigger budget than us, had more prep time for the show than we had, and are currently in construction management and run a very popular design blog. It just would not have looked good to give the amateurs a show because we just went out and won this one a whim. My opinion is that the network hands down expected that couple to win, and this show was simply a vetting process for them to see how they would do on camera. And when they didn't, the feeling in the room was very much "oh shit, what do we do now?" Your fame eventually fades away. People stop asking to take a picture with you at Costco or Albertsons or Home Depot. People stop asking you for money and favors, and you have to make a conscious effort to move forward and pursue other avenues. Thanks for reading. I went to high school with a girl who was on a popular cooking competition show. She didn't win, but everyone was really proud that someone from our town was even on the show. She was a very nice, driven girl and was professional on the show. I can't imagine anything bad came from it. I know a girl that was on The Bachelor. Reality TV comes and goes quickly, so no one really recognizes her anymore. When it aired, she'd get the occasional "are you on The Bachelor?" and that's about it. I'd imagine foremost, once your season is done, life returns to normal barring you not having total meltdown on national TV. A guy that was on The Bachelor or The Bachelorette a few years ago named Constantine lives right on the corner of my neighborhood. His family also has a nice Greek and Italian restaurant that has the best food, and he still waits tables and helps out there. Now he's married to Amanda Seyfried's best friend that's a British model who teaches at a dance school down here. They just recently had a daughter. A couple of years ago, when I was 13 years old, I was chosen to pitch my Science for Kids company on Shark Tank Season 5. I was so excited. I had already been on every local news channel numerous times here in Phoenix, and had published 5 science books for kids on Amazon. I went on there to ask for $10,000 to do a fun science DVD series for elementary schools. All I wanted in the world was to be the next Bill Nye the Science Guy and show millions of kids how awesome science is. Anyway, there I was, 13 years old, standing all by myself in front of Mark Cuban, Kevin O'Leary, Robert Herjavec, Barbara Corcoran, and Laurie Greener. I dressed up as a mad scientist and did a couple of really cool science demos while I was saying my pitch. I was so nervous and my python hit the floor really hard and made the loudest noise ever. I did everything I could to mentally recover from it. They started peppering me with questions, and I thought for a moment, yes, I'm so walking out of here with a deal, and all the kids in my school are going to wish they never made fun of me for being a science geek. Anyway, Mark was the first one out. Then Kevin told me that I was dead to him. He never even offered me a deal, so I'm not sure why he said that to me. Barbara said no. Robert and Laurie were still on board with me. Then Robert asked me how many YouTube subscribers do you have? Ugh, I couldn't lie. I only had like a 100. That's when Lori said no, because she didn't know how to build up a YouTube channel, which I wasn't asking for, and Robert said no, because no one uses DVDs anymore. I walked out of there so humiliated. A few months later I got an email from the producers letting me know that my segment wasn't even going to be aired. I pretty much gave up after that. It was too much of an uphill climb trying to get anyone to care about getting kids to love science. TLDR, I was on Shark Tank when I was 13 years old with hopes and dreams of becoming the next Bill Nye the Science Guy. Instead, I walked away with my dream smashed into a million pieces by 5 billionaires. I was supposed to lose in this small Swiss TV show on which I was when I was 12, but there was a bug in the computer system which automatically showed the correct answer to me. Instead of making us record it again, they just let me win. Went home with a $100 and a wig. Awesome. I was a friend with somebody who appeared on The Voice, UK. After all the local towns being covered in posters etc. To vote for her she came back and just continued to perform locally. It didn't change much for her, but she didn't get too deep in the competition. So I don't know how it would be if she had gotten close to winning. Yeah, I knew a guy who made it to the finals of Australian Idol. He lost, came in third, and when he got back home nothing really changed. While he was on the show Facebook was nothing but his face. He was the good looking guy in the competition, so every tween girl was in love with him. Our hometown had his picture plastered over all the newspapers, had his vote number up in the store buildings, etc. It was pretty crazy. Then he lost, came back home, and played local gigs. Went on a few tours he put together himself. He's marginally successful as music is his full-time job now, but you'd think with someone who placed third on a popular show and was literally on posters hanging in people's bedrooms, there'd be more glamour involved. Dunno if I'm late, but last year I was on Wheel of Fortune. I got to the final puzzle round, but didn't get the puzzle correct. The envelope revealed I would have won $30,000. It was shot a month previously and basically everyone just congratulated me for what I did when it aired. Except Bob. Bob, so you missed out on $30,000. Me, yeah. I went in with nothing though, and had a great time, and won those trips. Bob, still though. $30,000 would be nice. What a shame. Thanks Bob. Also, duck taxes. My buddy was the winner on a food truck competition on Food Network. He was still the same guy who just loved to cook, but the funny part was he had brought over his girlfriend, and she was the winner of the first season of that Paris Hilton Best Friend show. So I guess they had an icebreaker when they met, both being on reality TV, and they are both winners so that's good. Oh man, I wasn't on anything but a kid that was in my grade at high school was. He went on American Idol and juggled while singing horribly. When the judges didn't like it, he broke out a dance. After the negative reactions from the judges he burst into the hallway crying and making a big scene. Prior to the airing of the episode he was telling everyone to watch it. When we came back to school the next day he got made fun of pretty mercilessly, but he was quick to tell everyone that it was all staged. He was socially never able to recover from that one though. I felt really bad for him and I think he ended up switching schools. Here's a clip. The bad auditions are staged because by the time everyone gets to see the 3 judges, they've already been through 2 or 3 rounds of producers. In fact, those auditions don't even take place in the same building or the same day. The producers pick the bad people who will be funny. Source: auditioned for American Idol as a teenager. And no, I did not make it through the rounds with the producers. We each sang for a few seconds and they would point to the door if they wanted us to progress to the next set of producers. A girl from my high school came in 2nd place on American Idol last year. It was funny watching everyone get so hyped up, even though nobody had cared about that show for years. They fixed up our school to make it look good on camera, hung a giant 2-story poster on the front of the build, and held 2 concerts, one for the public and another private one for students. The private one was really awkward. It was clearly just for the camera and not for us. They would stop the show or restart parts so they could refilm it, and a producer would come out to tell her what to do next. After she lost, everyone forgot it happened. She came to our prom with the winner as her date for a half hour. I got to pee next to him, which was pretty much the highlight of the prom for me. When I went to college, nobody had ever heard of her. It would have been interesting to see her on when it was at its height of popularity. I have an old buddy who actually won Millionaire. He quit his big city bartending job, moved back to his hometown, and enrolled in nursing school. He graduates pretty soon, and got to do a complete career change as an adult, having had the opportunity for a paid education, something he couldn't otherwise have afforded. Most folks on reality TV seem to think that showbiz people are going to see their true talent and invest in them. Your friend did it right. He saw his own true talent and invested in himself. Just wait until the comments from people on To Catch a Predator and cops start showing up.